Now at noon, Oregon's first measles case this year.
When it lands in a group of relatively unvaccinated people, it'll spread like wildfire.
Health officials say the infected person spent time in two busy public places. We'll tell you where. Plus, the latest on the ceasefire deal between Israel and Iran.
They agreed to the ceasefire, and it was a very equal agreement. They both said that's enough. They both said it.
That's President Trump talking about his involvement in helping to put the deal together. Then later, the effort this week in the Oregon legislature that could mean the end to Multnomah County's Preschool for All program. But first, the ongoing search for two armed suspects accused of carjacking in this northeast Portland neighborhood.
Our neighborhood has changed a lot.
KGW News at noon starts right now.
We do this very methodically, very professionally. We want to make sure our officers are safe. We want to make sure the neighborhood is safe.
Portland police say they've ended their hours-long search for two armed carjacking suspects in this northeast Portland neighborhood, but the suspects are still on the loose. Thanks for joining us here at noon. I'm Drew Carney. Around 4 o'clock this morning, police say the two suspects carjacked a car at gunpoint in the Hazelwood neighborhood. It happened near Northeast 108th and Haslow. After allegedly driving the car to Northeast 114th, officers say they saw the suspects run from the car. That's when police issued a shelter in place for people who live in that neighborhood. That shelter in place wound up lasting for hours. We spoke to a man who says he's thinking about moving because of the uptick in crime there in recent years.
Our neighborhood has changed a lot. My kids used to run in the streets and play outside all the time, but now they've grown up, but I wouldn't want them to be out alone.
Anyone with information about the carjacking or the suspects should contact Portland Police. In a health alert this afternoon, doctors have confirmed Oregon's first case of measles this year. Officials say it involves an unvaccinated patient, and they also say the person spent time in two very busy public places, a Safeway store in Lake Oswego and the airport. Health officials also told us the patient had just returned from an international trip. Here's KGW's Catherine Cook with more.
We now have our first case of measles in Oregon in 2025.
State health officials warn the adult with Oregon's first confirmed measles case of the year spent time at this Safeway store on A Avenue in Lake Oswego. They say they were here on Sunday, June 22nd, between 11:30 a.m. and 3 p.m.
I go here every day. It's my local grocery store, Safeway, so that's a little frightening.
Pedro Fernandez says he and his kids are vaccinated against the measles, a disease health officials declared eliminated in the U.S. 25 years ago.
The problem is there's so many people that, as a matter of choice, choose not to be vaccinated, but we're a public grouping of human beings. We're not just individuals, and this is where that intersects.
I think my biggest thing is if you're sick, stay home. Don't spread it around.
A few days before the Safeway visit, health officials say the adult was hospitalized with measles symptoms, including a rash and pink eye. A lab confirmed the disease on Monday. The patient had recently traveled internationally, pointing to another public exposure risk. On June 17th, they took a United Airlines flight from Chicago to Portland, landing around 6:30 p.m. Health officials say they spent 2 hours at PDX, including time in baggage claim. Doctors' biggest concern is over people who aren't vaccinated.
When it lands in a group of relatively unvaccinated people, it'll spread like wildfire. And so, what our summer looks like is going to be dependent on what that happens, whether that happens.
Health officials say measles symptoms can show up 1 to 3 weeks after exposure. They usually start with a fever, cough, runny nose, and red eyes, followed by a rash. To limit exposure to others, doctors say call your provider ahead of time if you think you're infected. Don't just show up. And they note the recommended 2 doses of MMR vaccine offer 97% protection against the measles.
And if the medical advice is to be vaccinated, then we're vaccinated. I don't see where there's a debate, and as a consequence, people are going to die unnecessarily with an eradicated disease. It's unbelievable.
Catherine Cook, KGW News.
One more note to this story. With more than 1,200 reported cases, 2025 is already the second most active year for measles since 2000. That's the year the U.S. officially eliminated the virus. This map shows the latest number of cases reported to the CDC this year. And with summer travel plans upon us, officials are reminding people to be extra cautious. They say anyone traveling abroad should get the measles vaccine. The National Transportation Safety Board, meanwhile, held a hearing yesterday as it works to understand why a door plug blew off a Boeing 737 aircraft over Portland early last year. A preliminary investigation placed blame on missing bolts that were meant to hold that door plug in place. So those findings were confirmed during yesterday's hearing. Then the board pushed further on how it was even possible for those bolts to go missing in the first place.
This isn't all on Boeing or Spirit. I have lots of questions about where FAA was during all of this. The FAA is the absolute last barrier of defense when it comes to ensuring aviation safety.
Yeah. The NTSB chair there acknowledged Boeing's efforts to improve its safety and quality control since the door plug incident, which happened on a Boeing-made plane. She also indicated the FAA has heard the wake-up call to improve its oversight. Quick break from our news headlines here for a live look outside downtown Portland on this Wednesday afternoon, and it is a cloudy Wednesday afternoon. I think there were even a few raindrops here outside the station about an hour ago, Rod.
Yeah.
So what's the latest?
Not going to be looking for much change this afternoon. Remember, this is a 2-day cool down today and tomorrow, and either day has a chance of some sun breaks, but could very easily just remain overcast. You get up above the clouds. This is Timberline. It's also sunny at pass level over the Cascades. There's Jefferson. So that's just evidence what we're dealing with is a low push of marine clouds. Here's Schnickwood's Casino Resort in Lincoln City. It's been back and forth between being foggy and not foggy, and now it's back to being, well, foggy, 56 degrees. There are some breaks along the coast in spots. Here's our state capital, been overcast all morning. Salem has not had the amount of light rain shower or spritzy drizzle patches that we have had here in Portland. You folks are at 60 at noon. And downtown, the cloud heights have risen a little bit. They were down low. We had fog over the West Hills. That has improved. Our lunchtime temperature is 62. Real quick look at the visible picture. Solid white. This is all very solid cloud cover. Salem, Woodburn, Portland, Epinay, Kelso. But there are breaks over the coast range. And as I mentioned, some breaks over the coast. So it kind of depends on where you are if you're going to get a little taste of sun at some point this afternoon or not. I think odds favor Portland for the most part, remaining overcast, light winds, high temperature, only 68. Drew, that's almost 20 degrees cooler than what we had just 24 hours ago, sir.
Little crazy there, Rod. Little weather craziness. We'll check back in with you in a few minutes. Back to our headlines this afternoon. A last-minute move by Oregon lawmakers during the legislative session that ends on Sunday could eliminate Multnomah County's Preschool for All program. An amendment that is introduced earlier this week aims to prevent counties from imposing an income tax to help cover the costs of preschool. Voters approved Multnomah County's program in 2020. The program taxes high-income earners to provide free preschool for all 3- and 4-year-olds. Multnomah County leaders call the effort to get rid of this tax, quote, unconscionable.
The County Commission is standing together, and Multnomah County is doing everything possible to protect against this unprecedented, unfair, and undemocratic effort.
And we're one of those rare families that we both benefit from and pay into Preschool for All. And we're thrilled to do it. We think that it's an extremely wise investment of public dollars.
If Oregon lawmakers move forward with the amendment, the free Preschool for All program could be gone in Multnomah County by the year 2027. Meanwhile, the homeless service tax on high-income earners and businesses across the Tri-County area could also lapse if voters don't renew it. Yesterday, the Metro Council essentially decided to scrap efforts to get an extension for the tax on the ballot this November, following a recent survey that showed voters were not likely to approve it.
And it's become clear to me, if not to you, that there's really not a path this year to an extension of this measure. And then the gap in public trust is too wide. And we're going to have to work very hard over the coming years to narrow that gap and regain the trust of the public.
The current tax was passed in 2020 and is set to expire in 2030.
How is the Iran-Israel ceasefire going, in your opinion?
I think very good. Israel came back yesterday. I was so proud of them. because they came back. You know, they went out because they felt it was a violation. And technically they were right, but it just wouldn't have worked out very well.
That was President Trump at the NATO summit in the Netherlands, commenting on the ceasefire deal between Israel and Iran. That ceasefire appears to remain intact despite a rocky start Monday night when both countries accused each other of breaching the agreement. Yesterday, President Trump told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu not to expect future U.S. military involvement in the conflict. But people are still talking about what it took for the U.S. to strike Iran this past weekend in what is now known as Operation Midnight Hammer. Specifically, how the military was able to keep B-2 stealth bombers in the air and refueled during what was more than a 37-hour mission.
They call themselves a gas station in the sky, the 121st Air Refueling Wing with the Ohio Air National Guard.
This is a KC-135 Stratotanker.
A gas station that will hook up with F-16s, B-2s.
B-2s like the stealth bombers involved in attacking nuclear sites in Iran.
We help the fighter go accomplish their mission.
The airmen with the 121st refuel military aircraft mid-air.
So it's very similar to hooking up a gas pump to your car. Your car has the mouthpiece that the nozzle will go into, and we are the nozzle while the refueling aircraft have that mouthpiece for the gas.
It's a delicate dance that happens 20,000 feet up in the air, with the aircraft at times just 20 feet apart, extending the mission of the U.S. military.
If we were going to have fighters moving across the Atlantic Ocean, we call it over the pond, they don't have the gas to get there on their own. So having us airborne with them gives them the ability to make it in one fell swoop, never having to stop for gas.
Allowing aircraft like B-2 stealth bombers to get the fuel they need to stay in the air and on target.
Our job is to extend the reach of every asset in the America's inventory, both in the Air Force and other branches, as well as our allies around the world.
The Department of Defense won't confirm which air refuelers were involved in the weekend strikes, saying only that dozens of refuelers were required for what is now the second longest B-2 mission ever flown.
Again, that was Stacia Nakin reporting for us this afternoon. President Trump said today that the U.S. will talk with Iran next week, adding that the U.S. may sign an agreement that limits the country's nuclear program. The president also said, though, that he thought that wasn't necessarily going to happen. He thought it may not be necessary at all.